So, Joe Diomede, TTRP TV here in the studios, the music studios of Fergus and Gaia here in Diomede, which is a small village in Ariège in the south of France. And we're here talking about the collective, music collective. I had an interesting talk with Gaia back at my house, and it was interesting because we were talking about like factory farms, like in this area, how we take so much care for our food. We buy in our local markets, and we take a lot of care to what we put into our bodies. And we make sure that we buy our eggs from the local growers, and we're against factory farming. And it was interesting because Gaia made the connection with factory farming and factory music.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff we're getting is factory farmed, and it hasn't changed in decades. I mean, Billy Joel wrote a song called "The Entertainer," talking about that thing. Do you remember that song, "The Entertainer"?
Yeah.
Talking about gotta make it a 3-minute song and that's it.
Yeah, I mean it's the comparison with the food, or it's more to do with the local economy and supporting local artisans and reconnecting with the local public for musicians, and showing people the importance. I mean, music is a part of every society. It's a huge part of every revolution as well.
Yeah.
It's but it's important that we understand the role that musicians play within our communities, and that we remake that connection, because for the last it's been growing since the start of recorded music, or separating since the start of recorded music, the musician and the community. And now we look up to these huge people like Elton John and Ed Sheeran or whatever, but what have they got to do with Diomede? What have they got to do with around here? What have they got to do with my life?
Right.
So at the same time as we want to spread our music as far and wide as possible, and there are great tools to do that, we also want to make sure that people realise the importance of local singer-songwriters, local creators, local artisans in every field of life. But obviously our passion is music.
Sure. I mean, music or like we said before, everyone here makes if you make an impact, locally, you impact globally anyway, because because then, like you say, you're writing songs more pertinent to this area of France, and so if that song does get bigger or goes viral, or some of my audience listen to it in America, they're like, oh wow, interesting, what's going on there?
Yeah.
So it does, and then it's same thing's going on here, because everywhere has local music. I don't care if you live in New York, if you live, wherever you live, you got local music, and of course we're influenced by the Rolling Stones and all of the big names that unfortunately cottoned on very early in their musical careers. The way they saved themselves was to be, for lack of a better word, going corporate, shall we say, or just
I don't think it was even them that made this decision. It was big corporations who have taken a product, and like with everything in the 20th century, taken products and exploited it to the absolute maximum on a global scale. And we're now in a position where a lot of people are waking up to the fact that that isn't the model for the future, and it's arguable how much it's worked for the past up to the present date.
Right.
But we have to find a model whereby we can change that exploitation by corporation philosophy.
Yeah. And it's been exacerbated, I guess. I mean, I don't want to go on about the last 2 years. We all know what happened in the world then, but local music saved our region because we were able to still see local musicians, and sometimes it had to be felt like 1920s, kind of. You're what were they called, the clubs where in the 20s,
the speakeasies.
Speakeasies. I mean, but it was great because it was local, so the word spread. From the bouchade, as we call it here. What did you hear about, and then you can go and all of a sudden be in a venue with people and see musicians that and say, wow, this music is quite good, quite pertinent as well, like you say.
Yeah.
And we're sitting in the studio here. This is your studio. So does this tie in? I mean, do you record local bands here as well? And
we've done our band's 3 albums in this studio. And then we both have other projects that we're working in who use this studio to record, but also we're opening up the studio for all the members of the collective as a resource for for us to be able to produce high quality music.
Right.
That we can then diffuse in. We've got a number of ideas and plans for bypassing the whole streaming Spotify phenomenon which is going on at the moment, which is also ripping off a lot of musicians, or at least not giving them the opportunity to make money from their recorded.
Sure.
And it's kind of almost become the mentality of musicians are, my recordings aren't a way of making money, I'll just get them out there.
Right.
But it's a figure that shocked me when I heard it last year, but there are 60,000 releases on Spotify every single day.
Right.
Well, that was a year ago. It's probably 80,000.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's growing all the time. But so there's no way that we can compete with
Sure.
that. There's no way that you're just sunk immediately unless
Right.
you've got enormous resources or enormous skills out with music skills. So internet skills and whatever, which
Sure.
we don't all.
And then you're
necessarily
spending
have.
time in front of a screen rather than behind an instrument.
Yeah, exactly.
And as you can see with Spotify, like you say, like a musician like you, or a small-time musician who's not very big, you get a pittance for your
Yeah.
money. But then, like in this whole Joe Rogan, Joni Mitchell, and Neil Young taking the money off of Spotify, their stock drops by millions, maybe even billions, because of these two names dropping. These are the people who are making money. So we go back again to the big corporate.
Yeah.
Big farm factory, kind of music.
Well, they're making billions because there are 60,000 releases a day, and they make a pittance of each one of those releases.
Right.
The artist also makes a pittance, but when it's all accumulated into the shareholders' bank accounts of Spotify, it's significant.
Yeah,
just
of
because
course,
there's so much out
of course.
there.
Yeah.
But if we can get or show again the value of a beautiful physical product like a vinyl,
Mm-hmm.
that enables you to really get to know the music, to connect with the musicians, and we're going to be getting out there with market stalls and getting into all the local bookshops and disc shops
Mm-hmm.
and whatever, and getting a presence out there. We want to start. We're starting a radio show, regular radio show, which will be run by and will talk about the music of the members of the collective.
Right.
To actually create a bit of a buzz and to make people think once again about, rather than streaming Neil Young, which you can't now,
Not on Spotify.
buying a nicely produced, nice object from a local group, and maybe following that band.
Yeah.
And
back to buying vinyl. and CDs.
nourishing the local economy, nourishing the people who are actually relevant to.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to tactile. Our kids are growing up. Luckily, our kids. We didn't have a lot of vinyl, but we had CDs, so they would pull out the CD and look at the words and look at the cover. But a lot of people don't even know what that is. They just stream, and you don't get that tactile loveliness. So we had vinyl, and now that's coming back, and it was tactile. It was not only just the music; it was also the album. It was an album. It was a product.
Yeah, I think there's a very good. These are all very good reasons why vinyl is now outselling any other format of music, because it dropped for a while because of the convenience factor and because of
Vinyl
new
itself,
technology,
I guess,
and always new technology creates a buzz around itself, but actually it isn't a replacement.
Right. Well, it's funny, we've seen the DAT, we've seen CD, we've seen all of these formats come and go, but people want to be human. We want to have touch, we want to have contact, we want to be tactile. And you keep on throwing the terms out, the collective. And so, Gaia, explain to me a bit. You explained to me in my house very nicely about the association, the collective, and the difference. Between like the association has the structure, and then the collective is the wider scope of people who can join and be in, but not necessarily be part of that internal structure of an association. Just explain a little about the.
Well, we are trying to create a collective. There is basically a bunch of artists, mainly singer-songwriter, but it can be interprete, it can be, musicians mainly, who have some, like a manifesto, some common values behind it, and is what Fergus kind of said now. We like to consider a bit ourselves as some music permaculture group, like a musical, because we want to create levels of mutualization and co-working, that really are grounded, and so at the beginning you put a lot of effort creating this push, this level, but at the end the result is gonna be easier. I don't know how to explain it, but the key word I think is really mutualization. We are a group of people, and it's really early days, this project. So at the moment we are not many, we are like 7 or 8, and we are all musicians, but we all have very different skills in this, let's say,
Besides your musical skills,
Besides
you're talking about
our
like an IT skill, or someone who's good at diffusing.
Yeah. So let's think about, there is one musician in the group. There is also a very good painter, and design, like can draw. So the idea was to create, as we are also thinking of way of making money with this collective. The idea is to self-support ourselves, to get out of the digital circuit, but still to make a living out of music, out of our product. So the idea is to create, let's say, based on one of the inspiration is the collection of Putumayo. So to create a series of discs, of compilation of musicians from here that are all gonna have a similar cover. So it can be very recognizable. Again, it's still early days, but if you look at Putumayo, you can see the hundreds and hundreds of CDs that they produce. They all have very similar. Yeah. You can recognize it straight away. Marketing,
branding. I mean, to use a word that's out there, that could have a negative connotation sometimes. Branding, but it is. It's something that's you go to and you go, oh, Putumayo. Who doesn't have Putumayo one on their shelf somewhere? I do, and I remember seeing it in the local place where I lived in Ireland. It was like the Putumayo was coming out, I guess 20, 30 years old.
I guess. And their distribution model is something that we've taken inspiration from, in that they found alternative ways. It wasn't just through HMV Records and whatever. They found a way of getting a display into local shops.
Yeah, we had a local shop,
and it's kind of about solidarity and it's about artisanal or craftsmanship and whatever, and we're trying to associate what we do with other products than just music.
Right.
Because
it empowers on so many levels.
Yeah, exactly.
Local shops, local shops. So your local shops, your local musicians. Then you grab on your talents of the collective, the musicians, who's a good artist and who's a good, IT person, and so you build on from that. So in your collective of 7, you're telling me already you have someone who could do your advertising, someone who could do your diffusion on the internet. So that's only 7 people, and around here we have, as we've seen in the last couple of years, so through just a handful of local venues in our region, I've seen quite a lot of musicians and great music.
Yeah, the idea also is to have a stand at the local markets and local events in the area, just because basically what we want is that people start to talk about it. We need to spread our ideas,
and that we're able to talk to
and
the
public. We want to talk. We want people to know what is going on here, and anybody, if it rings a bell in your heart around here, you can join and put your effort into this collective that we are creative. So we really want to be out and about, maybe at the local market with our CDs display, just to tell some manifesto, some documents that explain what we are doing, some people making live music, and just to say, we are here. There's music around. There is a lot of very talented people around you here in the south of France. So why don't you come and chat to us? You can ask us anything. You can come to our meeting if you want to know more. You can support us. This is the list of our concerts where we are playing independently from the collective, because each one of us then will continue with their separate career as well, musical career, but the two things can grow together. And so more and more we'll talk, and maybe one day we'll organize a festival, or someone will think, I need some musician, where can I go? There is the collective.
Like for a wedding or a birthday party.
Whatever.
And then, I don't know, Christmas presents. There is this nice display of album of musicians from, I don't know, it's just this just slowly growing and just making people around us just aware that.
And then it makes other people aware as well. Like, hopefully, like this show that goes out, it doesn't really have a huge following here in France, but it goes out to people in Australia, Ireland, and England, and America, who think, wow, I have lots of local musicians around me. I mean, I did an interview with a friend of mine in Southern England, who's thinking along those same lines. Like, we have such a collective of music, and I think people, help me on this, get nervous when they hear local music. And this is because we have YouTube, we have access to to a lot of this corporate music. Are we going to see the same 4 bands?
No, but this is the thing. Exactly what you said is another point I want to make. Being local doesn't mean, you're not becoming narrow-minded and not looking at the outside world. If collective like ours are born all over the world or all over France, we can do partnership. You come to mine, I organize you 10 gigs, one after the other. I organize a festival and you come here, and then you organize a festival and we come there and we spread our music.
Yeah, it's been a large part of the inspiration.
Sure.
What has been, because we've travelled a lot as musicians, and we've collaborated a lot with musicians all over the world.
Yeah.
So already there's a network there of people who can be our partners in other territories,
right,
and can create similar initiatives. And I think that me personally, I think that this is the way forward for a lot of musicians. I mean, not necessarily all of them. I'm sure Ed Sheeran will continue doing what he does.
Sure, but at one point he was a local musician.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was young, I used to go see Twisted Sister in a local pub. The Rising Sun. Yeah. We saw lots of bands in our local pub that has become bigger now, and they're much bigger in the wider world, but they were local musicians. Ed Sheeran was probably a local musician. Miro here, takes piano lessons with my wife, and one day he'll be a local musician. This is, I guess, what we worry about is, like you said, people think, oh my, it's just going to be closed, but in every world, I'm in the cycling world. I remember, I used to ride with a local club in the south of England, and they did exchanges. Yeah. Hey, we live in a beautiful part of the world, and they had these huge exchanges. 10 cyclists would come from France and spend the week and stay in people's houses and explore the area on bicycle. And then they would do the same. Same with the music. You got, like you said, you set up 10 concerts for them, and then you go there and set up 10 concerts for you. You've been to a couple of festivals like the Floating Castle.
Floating Castle,
in Slovenia. And that's, I guess, born of local musicians.
Yeah.
But now it's quite an international festival, isn't it?
It brings musicians from all around the world.
But smaller time. I mean, you don't get big names.
No, exactly. It's people people who have a local following. It's a lot of DIY musicians.
Yeah.
And this is it really. We're all DIY musicians. Mm-hmm. Doing our own thing, and there's as we know, there's power in a union, and when you get 7-8 groups of DIY musicians together, you have so many more skills, so much more time on your hands to achieve all the things that one person on his own is really up against it to try and do. Mm-hmm. And when we're creating, as you say, the branding or the distribution or whatever, if there's a group of us doing it, we're basically replacing the work of a traditional record label.
Yeah.
By being the executives ourselves.
Sure. And
to use
again,
another horrible word.
Yeah, another word. But and of course with the use of the technology that is available, I mean, you can become quite big internationally without record labels now. I mean, so the technology, for all its goods and its bads and its evils and its everything else, there is a lot of good to come out of that technology, because you could share your music and you don't need a record label, and you could put something out there. And we just have to hope that these platforms remain open and free and don't become too corporately controlled to one narrative of music, to one narrative of opinion on whatever that we see happening in our world right now. We want it to be open and not controlled, and that's why you have that local. So you go back to the local, which gives you power again over your music, over what you write, over what you do. And have you seen in this area? So you've been in this area 8 years? 8 years. So and when you first came here, obviously you were new to the area, and you've grown. As musicians, you made a lot of contacts. So just off the top of your head, like, how has the music scene transformed, and how many musicians and different groups have you seen, be empowered by, say, a place like the Grangette and Le Girouette and these local venues.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's difficult to be exact about that, because when we came here we knew nothing about what was going on in the area. We came here a bit like just on a whim, pretty much.
Sure.
I was a street musician, and I moved to the rural area where there's no streets, no people on the streets, and so we had to make it up as we went along. And so we discovered little by little and worked out ideas of how to create a music scene around us. And at first, well, you'll remember, we invited musicians to collaborate with us from all over the world. And we created these projects where we had 7 musicians from 7 countries for 7 days to create to create an album. We did that 4 times. And during that time, we were building our own network of places that we could play and ideas of how we could get what we are doing out there beyond the tiny little village.
Well, you were trying to kind of do the Putumayo type thing then, weren't you? Trying to create that collective album with kind of a branding.
Yeah.
What was it called again?
It was called Humanitarian.
Humanitarian, yeah. And it was. I mean, for us, it was great because I got to see these musicians, local musicians from Ethiopia who were local there, but all of a sudden they were playing here.
Yeah.
And I guess if things had gone a different way, you could have played there.
Yeah.
For if the project would have changed hands.
Yeah, I mean, we never went to Ethiopia or Malawi or Senegal, where we got musicians from.
Brazil or
Brazil,
Australia.
but we've done quite a lot of visits to the musicians with whom we've collaborated. In and around Europe.
Yeah. I mean, that's again, it's breaking those myths of the boredom in music. People think if it's not the Rolling Stones and you're paying $200 a ticket, you're not going to go to have a good night out.
Yeah.
Which is small venue, great music happens all the time.
Yeah.
In every city, village, town across the world. But we're so brainwashed into believing that if it's not U2, not with the big lights and the big 17 trucks pulling into the parking lot with all of their kit, it's not going to be a fun evening. But we've had how many great evenings here?
Yeah.
And your band, my wife plays in your band, Nothing Concrete, and I've seen you guys play in different venues around France, and you've played in Italy as well, in Slovenia at the Floating Castle, and so where do you see now? You got your 7 musicians, you got your collective, you got your association. So what's the next step?
The next step is to start our radio emission, which is going to be a regular thing. Talking about the collective, talking about the ideas of Radio Collective,
a radio
and playing a
here.
local radio here.
Okay.
Yeah. And playing obviously playing a playlist of the music that's been created by the members of the collective, the collaborations we've done, maybe some choices of their influences. So we're putting together a regular radio show on that.
Okay.
We're working on more repertoire. Our band, in fact, all of our bands are currently in recording process. So my brass band, Super Klaxon, we're recording an album. We've just done like a 2-disc thing with Delete the Ream. Gaia's band, the Piquet Quartet, have just started recording here in the studio, and Nothing Concrete are recording. So we're working on building the catalogue to be able to present at our market stalls and to be able to go to the shops. And also we need to start getting the word out there to the retailers. Speaking to people what's in it for them, why they should be supporting this product, and getting our product into.
And I guess getting your product in is important, but I guess we have to also change the mentality, because again, we've been so, everything on YouTube is, do you want to make $1 million? Do you want to make $1 million? It's like, do we need $1 million? Do you want to make a living? Do you want to have time to spend with your children? Who Miro was just on your lap here, and you're teaching him piano. Your other son plays the drums, so that's so important as well.
Yeah,
it's the quality. It's not always quantity. It's not like how much can I get out there, how much am I going to make. It's like how much free time as well. How much time do I spend in the community as a parent, as a a food grower, and whatever else you want to do. And yeah, sure, of course you want to make
and getting
a
the message
living
out there,
Yeah.
as you said earlier, that the musicians aren't just Mick Jagger, Elton
sure.
John. There are musicians who don't, like us, who don't have any ambition to be at that level. Don't want to. I don't want to make a million. I just want to be able to be creative, make the music that I want to do, get it out there to an appreciative audience, not be constrained by a record label who's saying this is you got to have a hit, you got to.
Right. I need an album next year and the year after.
It's a very socialist project. We are very militant. It really is.
Yeah.
We are. I think it's important to say, this thing of the values that we share with the other people in the Colede.
It's so important.
It's really.
Because you can
it's out. There's nothing about being successful in the way Ed Sheeran is.
Poor old
Nothing
Ed Sheeran,
about.
we've given him a hard time.
No, okay.
Well, we like you, Ed. I mean, it's okay,
No, but it's really to say, of course we need money. Everybody needs money, but you don't need a lot of money.
It shouldn't be the ambition.
No, the ambition,
money.
right? But in anything in life, I don't care what you do. If your ambition is I want to make money, you just lose the whole thing. If you want to go back to being philosophical, you go back to the Bhagavad Gita, whatever. They all say the same thing. You work from your heart, you do what you love, and the other stuff will take care of itself.
Yeah.
And it will. I mean, we could laugh about Ed Sheeran and go back to it, but listen to a lot of his original music, singing about his grandmother, about his childhood, and it's like whatever, he I don't know how I don't really follow Ed Sheeran so much. I don't know his whole story. I know he's a big name, but at one point he was just writing songs, and the problem is when the money grabs you, all of a sudden you might lose yourself, Ed Sheeran, the Who, whoever. We can go back in time to to many artists, but it's always keeping that perspective.
Yeah.
And your perspective, I think, is keep it local.
Yeah. Work local.
Work locally.
I mean, I wouldn't say that my ambition is to only play in these villages. We want to travel. We want to continue to meet.
Yeah.
But to reinforce our value locally and to our local community,
right,
and reinforce those links between musicians and their community,
maybe
which have always been so important.
Right.
Live local, think globally.
Yeah.
Do you want to say that again without looking like?
I never heard that phrase before. No, but it's true. I mean, it's true. Or act locally and impact globally. I mean, all of these things, they do ring true. And maybe when I said keeping it local, I mean keep your focus on supporting local people to realialize. We
are artisans.
You make You make it here, and you have your music. Of course, that doesn't mean you only play within a 50-kilometer radius of Domazon. You go out and you play, and you go on tour, and you do stuff. It's not ending your life and saying my life will be within 60 kilometers. Nothing wrong if that's what you want as well. Then you have something to pull on. Yeah. So that's excellent. Any working titles, names of this cooperative?
I think the name at the moment is Let's Galette, because galette is slang for a vinyl, for a record.
Okay, and a galette, for the non-galette is also a crepe, so it's the flat thing looks like a vinyl. So Let's Galette. Yeah. So a little franglais.
Yeah. Okay. With an underneath slogan which is M equals EC squared.
A little Einstein play on letters.
Music equals energy collective squared.
Oh, okay. Very good. Yeah, like that. Do you have to get permission from Albert?
Dead.
Oh, he's dead. Okay, you're cool. And so that's, again, it's a work in progress. This could change.
Yeah.
And I'd like to come back and talk to you guys in 6 months, after this spring, summer season of music, and see, what happened. Did it grow? Do you have is there anything planned with your Nothing Concrete band, music-wise? Because I know you really took a hit this year with all the restrictions. Now things are opening up a bit.
Yeah, we've got
Any-
gigs coming in.
That's good.
Got a few concerts.
And
We are planning on travelling to Italy and Slovenia
Okay.
for festivals
Okay.
this summer.
We
We've got
applied
some
to a
festivals
German one
around
as
here.
well.
We've applied. Yeah, we're making applications
Okay. Okay.
to play here, there, and
There you go.
roundabout.
Playing locally, impacting globally,
Yeah.
and and your music is pertinent. For those people who don't know, look up Nothing Concrete on YouTube. There's the songs you write are they're pertinent to the area, they're pertinent to here, but they're also pertinent to a worldwide audience.
Yeah, I hope so.
They're
And,
very political.
very political, but I mean,
No,
not
in a
with
good
humor,
way.
though.
In
yeah,
a good
political
way.
humor, but like,
Not Billy Bragg. Love him.
but hey. But yeah, it's good. Funny you say Billy Bragg because he's local to where Angie lives.
Right? Yeah. Of
Yeah,
course.
and I've seen him play in local venues there.
Yeah.
And it's great. Like we happen to live in Angie happened to grow up in an area with the local music was excellent, and we moved here, and the local music is excellent as well.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's not by coincidence only here and there, everywhere.
There's,
Yeah.
there's
just
great
have
musicians
music.
all over the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've been through and maybe coming to the end of a period where where many musicians have been disempowered by
Sure.
like every industry and like every part of society by imperialism, corporatism, and all these.
But I mean, this story is as old as like modern rock music. How many of your rock musicians were broke after the 70s and 80s because their manager walked off with millions, and or the Rodriguez story. How many stories are like that left untold? And Freddie Mercury getting screwed over by his, Zeppelin, they've all been through it. And so unfortunately maybe their backlash was to go corporate and make millions on back of it. And what did they give away? Did you sell your soul at the crossroads? Who knows? Who's to say? At the end of the day, we work from here. Yeah. Well, great. Well, Fergus, Gaia, thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, very good.
Thanks.
Look forward to some good nights of music. And this is Joe Diomede, TTRP TV from the studios in Domazon, where you've heard a lot of people out there have heard a lot of good music from here, because I know you have a few of the CDs that my wife plays on with these talented musicians. Thank you very much.
Ciao.
Ciao.
See ya.